Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Todd.
How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Do you have video or no?
I'm trying to.
I got you. Do you see me?
No.
All right. I got to get that fixed.
You see me, though?
I do.
Okay.
Hang on.
Chopping off part of my head. Not that that's important, but. Oops. There we go.
Hang on. I'm working on my end, Mike.
No worries.
He's just seeing the same thing, that this big X with nothing. Like
See it nothing. We're trying to figure out how to turn my camera on. This one's supposed to stop it, but we haven't started it.
what is, I see.
Hang on. I got Julie seeing if she can help me here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're still here. We're working on it.
No, all of a sudden. Oh, I see what happens is when you start talking, your box lights up.
Yeah, but you don't see any video, right?
No,
No,
not right now.
That's what we're trying to work on.
I see a camera with a line through it.
Yep, that's what we're trying to fix.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm there.
Okay, I think we got it.
All right.
What are you showing now, Mike?
Good.
You got video?
Hey, there you are.
Okay. New for both of us, I guess.
Yeah, this is the first. Well, I jumped in on the Board of Ed meeting last night.
Yep.
So
I've been doing most of them with the state. I don't use my camera. I keep it taped off. I just participate with the online portion of it.
you never know who's watching.
Well, this is the first, so.
Oh God.
All right, so you want to start? We can start.
Sure.
You tell me what you want to do.
Well, I'm gonna ask you some. I set some questions.
Yep.
You know that I wanted to run by you,
Okay.
and so like, well, first of all, how are you doing? Were you well or?
I'm well. It's very, very busy. The average day is between 4 and 6 conference calls with the state, different departments. Some of the governors conference, we've had some with Blumenthal, emergency management, boards of education. So it's been pretty busy. It's hard to wrap your head around all of it. It's kind of all of a sudden all this is coming out, you know, and it's getting very involved. But we're staying on top of it. I think, you know, we're trying the best we can. Right now with the school, we're doing the lunch program and the breakfast program. We're up between 530 and 560 kids for lunch, which then breakfast is added on top of that. Today was the first day we started the satellite location for that at the senior center, due to the fact that we have some people that can't make their way all the way up to the school. So,
right. Are they finding it easier to get to the satellite location at the senior center as opposed to going up to the middle school?
We don't know, because today is the first day. We'll see. We knew we had about 19 people that had committed to using the senior center as a pickup location, but we're going to see, you know, as we move forward, how much of that transfers to the senior center or how much is added by the senior center.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But there's definitely quite a need. We're having a lot of requests from families for food. So I know we've been working with the food pantry and picking up pre-bagged food supplies and dropping them off at doorsteps, so we're not having the contact with people, but we're getting them what they need to keep going.
So yesterday it came out that their first positive case of COVID-19 was recorded in Griswold.
Yep, go ahead.
Obviously none of us need to know who it is or anything like that, so I'm not even going to entertain that question. But I guess, what would you, as the first selectman, tell people now that we have had our first case confirmed?
Well, yesterday I had confirmation from Uncas Health that there are 2 that they know of.
In Griswold?
In Griswold, and there's an additional 3 that the town got notified of, a family of 3 that tested positive. So in having discussion with Uncas Health, we know that there's lead time for these test results to make it to the state level, back to the local level. And I guess what I would tell the residents is, you know, I think the circle was getting smaller for the last week or so, getting closer and closer, and now it's reality, it's here. So we believe at this point we're going to have 5 positive cases that are going to catch up with the system shortly. But the one thing that's, you know, we've been hearing, and I haven't seen it firsthand until yesterday, one of the individuals traveled and came back on the 17th of the month, got tested on the 18th, and just found out yesterday that it was positive. So today would have ended the 2-week quarantine. We're cutting it that close, you know, with the lead time.
Right.
So it's kind of concerning that, you know, the lead time takes that long. You're almost off that self-quarantine when you're getting the results. I hope they don't push it out any longer, because we could be in trouble.
I think it's, how do you feel about the importance of the test, you know, getting results back fairly fast? Because if you have patient A that has an idea that they may be testing positive, they get a test, and then they have communication and contact with other people, and then don't get a result back for 10 to 14 days. I mean, what's the impact?
Well, that's the problem. You know, I think the responsible person is going to self-quarantine when they're requested to. But I think you're going to have some that are probably going to say, I feel fine and I'm going to go out, you know, which kind of defeats the purpose and puts everybody else at risk.
All right. So, well, hopefully people stay quarantined and they keep practicing social distancing. Because really, you'd be here in the studio normally, you know.
I would, but I'm taking a lot of extra precautions, and you know, from here to home and home to here, and maybe stop and get milk or something. But that's about the extent of it. It's quite a change in everybody's lifestyle, and I know people are probably getting stir crazy, staying in and bored, but it's reality that everybody's trying to do the same thing.
Especially kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to kids. I mean, I have kids at home, and just they're wishing they were back in school.
Yeah, I think, you know, I have the same situation. We have some kids in the house, and they're spending a lot of time outside, but we've had a lot of rain lately, so they're stuck inside, so it's not that they can get out as much as they probably want to, or we want them to.
Yeah.
But, it's tough for everybody.
Yeah, it's very tough. So, all right, let's move on. I have like how is this affecting like things at town hall? I know the town hall is now closed to residents and customers that need to get things done, whether it's making tax payments or filing paperwork of the such. I know you guys put in the slot on the side on the Sewell Street side. But is it slowing processes down? How is it affecting operations at town hall?
I think we're still getting people to drop their stuff off. We're getting it back to them in a timely manner. So we're pretty much stuff goes in the drop box today, for instance, and we'll retrieve it tomorrow morning. It sits overnight. Janitorial staff will retrieve it the following morning and kind of distribute it to the offices. And we're processing it and getting it right back out. So I think the time frame is pretty quick to get it turned around. And some of the stuff as far as the town clerk's records and the title search and things like that, a lot of that's online in that database. I think talking with the town clerk, we go back about 40 years. So people are still able to do that. The fee has been waived by the company, so they can go online, the lawyers can, and retrieve that information remotely to do their title searches.
What about gun permits? I mean, I'm assuming that's pretty much stopped right now, and that's pretty much a hot button, especially with everything that's going on with COVID-19. I'm assuming people or more people want to get a gun permit.
We haven't had anybody drop any off, and we haven't had any calls for request. The way we have it right now, if somebody requests an application, I'll mail it out to them, because it comes from my office, but we haven't gotten those requests yet. The resident trooper, I touched base with him. He's doing the borough ones. He had one in the past 2 weeks, so it seems to have slowed down, he said.
Okay. What about economic development? I mean, this is changing everything. The what coronavirus is doing, it's changing everything, the way we do business, how we interact. How is this affecting different items for economic development in the town?
It's definitely affecting things. I think people are looking at the economy. We had some news that came in this morning from Flag RV that they had a family meeting last night, and they have decided that they're not going to move forward with their location in Griswold due to the COVID-19 and the stress it's had on the economy overall. So that was kind of sad news that they've made that decision, but I think you have to respect it. That's a big investment, and I think if you look down the road, people aren't going to probably spend money for a while after we get through this, because they're going to be very unsure on, we're talking about maybe another peak in the fall, possibly in the spring, what's going to be coming, and I don't think people are going to really be inclined to spend money.
As far as local business is concerned, I've talked to a few business owners, and the feeling that they have, or at least the majority, is that some will just plain never recover and end up possibly, closing their doors forever. So is it fair to say that COVID-19 is pretty much a game changer when it comes to local business?
Well, I think, that's a valid point, and we've had a lot of discussion on the conference calls with the governor. And, I've probably had a dozen or so businesses reach out to me and ask me what's available at the state level. I sent them the paperwork that I've received through the DECD, which is working with the Small Business Administration. They had $25 million put aside for businesses to apply for loans. The cap was $75,000. In 24 hours, they had 4,000 applications, and they closed the program.
Yeah.
They've now doubled that to 50 million to cover those 4,000 people at the state level. We now, as of yesterday, have that federal loan/grant program that's come out. We're still looking at the paperwork, but it seems to me like They're offering an amount of money if you meet criteria. You have under 500 employees, and there's a lot of other criteria. If you keep your employees employed for 12 months, that loan will turn into a grant, which is not repayable. So that's a big program that, you know, DECD is going to start, I believe, today working on with the businesses. So we're getting that information out to the ones that have inquired. Like I say, there's about 12 or so that have reached out. The one thing that I've talked with the other two selectmen about that I would like to research at some point with them, and it's more of a state problem, and we're trying to get an answer from the state level. I'd like to see if for taxes, you know, personal declarations on businesses, if we can get to a point where we could waive interest for up to a year and give those people a year to pay interest free. The problem is the state regulations require an 18% penalty for late taxes. So we're trying to work with the state level. They're listening to the towns, and I think that's something they're going to look at and see if we can do something to try to help some of those businesses, you know, keep them in existence if we can. If that's going to make a difference, you know, we can at least try it.
I think, and this is just another piece of feedback that I've received, is that with businesses possibly going away, unfortunately, nobody wants to see that, because that's, I mean, tax revenue for the town, it's jobs, it's income for families. But do you think it's also going to change the way people do business? Like this may be something that they're learning different ways to cut corners, save money. Do you think this is something that will eventually even keep the unemployment rate higher than normal?
I think you're going to see that unemployment rate stay higher than normal after we're over with this, because of the businesses that have not come through this or were unable to recover. And I think it goes beyond, you know, your small business here in town. I think you're going to have some larger ones that, you know, weren't able to continue under a executive order that says they're not essential. You know, I think that's going to be devastating to a lot of these companies that had to shut down. But it goes right down to the local level. I mean, some of our establishments are still open for takeout. You know, I see a lot of activity in some of these areas on Main Street and around town that they're still doing business. I'm sure the volume is probably down. I don't know if that volume is enough to sustain them to keep going, you know, as we move forward.
I think a lot of them have changed the way they do business as well. Like I know a couple of restaurants in town are, you know, offering curbside pickup.
Yes.
Even contactless type of pickup as well, you know, like they're doing in some of the fast food establishments. But they seem to be seemingly doing anything they can to go ahead and procure any kind of business that they can get walking, you know, towards their doors.
Right. And I think they have to be flexible to, you know, the needs of what the public wants. And I think that's exactly what I see is the curbside pickup. People don't want to go in to pick up takeout. That's what I'm seeing. You know, they're trying to limit their exposure wherever and whenever they can.
As far as going to switch gears again on you, I'm actually, it's funny because usually when we talk, you know, we just having a conversation. So I didn't know what to do. So I actually, you know, went ahead and, you know, prepared a little script there, you know, different with questions just in case, because I didn't know how this was going to. You're actually having a lot more experience with virtual meetings than I do at this point.
We're getting more and more experience as we move on.
So about virtual meetings, now the last night, the Board of Education had a special meeting, and it was available on video conferencing, and it was actually, I mean, it was pretty cool. I thought it was, and do you think this is going to be the new normal? What about
I think we started exploring this before this all happened, and I think you were aware of some of that with Jim Barney and Ed Burdick applying through Atlantic Broadband for some grant money. And we rearranged our meeting room, trying to get things moving in the direction of recording and streaming meetings, whether we live streamed them or taped them and made them available for people to watch. And I kind of had a conversation with one of those individuals, and I said, I wish it moved ahead a little quicker than it has, because we're ready for it.
Yeah.
And we don't have the means to do it. Had we had that in place, I think we'd be in a better position today. But I think we were starting to move in that direction. Like I say, we rearranged the meeting room, for that reason, with the smart board up behind the head table, I'm going to call it, where the boards of commissions or selectmen would sit.
It makes sense too. I mean, I looked at I was in there for an EDC meeting, the economic roundtable.
Yep. And
I saw the way things had been changed around, and it looked good. It looked better than it did, I thought.
Yeah, well, I think
it was new.
Yeah, it's a change, and sometimes people don't like change, but I think sometimes change is good. And I like the layout the way it is right now. We're going to try it as we move forward. Hopefully we can move forward where we can stream these meetings and do it live. I think that's the way this is going right now. So I think once we get into that mode, it may continue that way. We really haven't had too many meetings. We had a special board of selectmen's meeting. I think it was last week, losing track of the days, but that was really the only meeting we've had. We're going to be gearing up to do some other ones so we can keep moving things forward, at least selectmen's meetings.
Yeah, again, and I think it's almost like it's the shape of things to come.
Yeah, I think there's a generation that I'm going to say is a younger generation that, I think this is their technology. I think I was too early for this technology, but now we're being forced to get used to it. That's sometimes what it takes.
I've had to embrace it myself. Well, some people say, well, you have the radio station. You should know some of this stuff. And I'm like, no, I don't. I honestly don't. Anything else you want to pass along, to residents or people that maybe they're listening to this on a podcast or watching it, or?
Well, I just think that, reality has set in. We do have the positive cases here. If people weren't taking the social distancing seriously, if they weren't taking the, I'm going to call it quarantining on their own to stay home, I think you really have to look at it at this point, because it's right next door. It could be next door, I guess I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's very concerning. We're seeing things that we see happen with this virus that we don't see with the flu. There's a lot of things different, and I think a lot of people kind of are shrugging it off, saying, well, this isn't a big deal, I can get through this, but we're seeing it affect people that we don't normally see it affect. That's very concerning.
Well, there are 58 cases right now from ages 0 to 19.
Yes.
That have tested positive for COVID-19 at this point. So it's nobody is immune to it.
No, they're not. And, going forward, my estimation is I don't think we're going to see school go back in session. We may, but I think it's doubtful. We started regrouping with some of the executive orders that were put out there for budgets and things. The state suggesting that we go out 30 days, set our dates 30 days from where they originally were, and work backwards. But now that the federal government extended another 30 days, I've got to believe the state's going to have to extend another 30 days. So that puts us into June now, June, July.
Yeah, I don't think any kids are thinking they're going back this year.
Yeah, and the budget process, that's part of the hang up with the executive order. It doesn't give us authority to work under last year's budget. So we're stressing to the governor that we need to add some language that we have authority to at least work under last year's budget to start the next fiscal year while we finish the budget process.
Yeah, that brings up another question. It's like, how does a referendum happen?
Well, there's a lot of theories in the executive order. If you read it, a lot of people thought that the Board of Selectmen set and voted on a mill rate. And when you read how we're set up here, it gives the selectmen to direct the Board of Finance to set a budget and a mill rate.
Without a referendum?
Well, that's still being decided by some of the attorneys interpreting the executive order. It sounds like they may have us do a virtual town meeting type of setup. That's what it's sounding like right now. But there's so many attorneys offering so many opinions, and those opinions are varying how that executive order is interpreted. So it's really involved. It seems like there's 4 or 5 different opinions out there. So we're not going to make a decision on that until we get a little clearer feedback.
Got it. All right. As always, Todd, thank you very much for joining and
Okay.
giving us the information. And, so I got one of these cups here. I'm going to get you one of these cups. I got a few left, but I'll get you one for your office.
Okay.
Coffee's great.
Is it going to be full when you give it to me?
I haven't given you a full coffee yet, have I? Ripping you off.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. You're welcome.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
So if you click on end meeting for all,